What's up everybody, this is Danny, and today I'm going to be doing the camera comparison that a lot of people have been asking me for, and that is the Galaxy S22 Ultra versus the Galaxy S22 Plus. So they are two different camera systems, and the Ultra of course is the flagship, but a lot of people might actually like the feel of the S22 Plus better because it has a flat display and it's cheaper. So let's go ahead and do this camera comparison to see if you can save some money with the Galaxy S22 Plus, or do you need to go with the flagship, the Galaxy S22 Ultra. Let's do it. Let's kick this off with the daytime pictures. Just a reminder, I shot all of these images on auto mode with scene optimizer left on both phones, and none of these images are edited in any way, just straight out of the camera, so these are the results that you would get if you bought one of these phones. I don't have the smaller Galaxy S22, but from the specs it looks like it's the same camera as the Plus model, so I'm assuming that you can take these results and apply to that as well if you wanted to buy the most compact phone. If this video helped you in any way making a buying decision and you decide to order one of these phones, I will leave some links down below so you can take advantage of the killer incentives that Samsung has going on right now. As you can see, general daytime pictures don't look too different. The images are sharp and have great dynamic range, and I think like almost all modern smartphones, you will be happy with both of these during the day, but let me show you some of the differences between these and what you may be missing or not missing with the Ultra model. First is the high-res option. The Ultra has a 108 megapixel sensor, and the S22 and S22 Plus have a 50 megapixel main sensor, and shooting in these high-res modes, the S22 Ultra is sharper and has more detail, and you can see that in the 300% scale crop, but when you go into the 1000% scale crop, you can see it better. The boat, the writing on it, and the background detail is still sharp, so this is awesome. Honestly, this is something that you have to think about if you actually need. The intention is to take these high resolution shots and crop them within reason without a quality loss, or if you're printing these pictures out, and again, I only crop in this far to show you the differences. The 50 megapixel camera of the S22 Plus will definitely do for most people because it still captures so much detail, but when you crop in really hard, that's where you'll see the difference between the two sensors. Look at that brick detail from so far away. It's crazy to have this on a smartphone camera. After looking at a lot of these images, you may see some slight differences in color and exposure. There also may be some minor saturation differences as well, so I'm betting that most average consumers won't even be able to tell the difference. I did notice sometimes that the S22 Plus has slightly higher contrast, and that can help bring out some of the details and accentuate certain colors. You can see it here in this area and the foliage in the background. This image here looks great on both, lots of detail with dramatic contrast, but when you punch in heavily to analyze, you can see a slight difference in definition on the Ultra's images, but again, if you have to punch in this deep to see a difference, I almost guarantee that you won't notice on a day-to-day basis, and I wouldn't blame you if you think some of the S22 Plus's shots look better. This will all be personal preference. I took so many images on this beautiful day at Animal Kingdom at Walt Disney World, and if you haven't been to Pandora, the world of Avatar, you definitely need to check it out. It's unreal what they built here, and if you're a fan, you'll be impressed, and the Flight of Passage ride is also very cool, so don't miss out on that. But here are a few things that you might miss if you don't go with the Ultra. First is the zoom range. If you're just shooting with the 3x, both are really good, but you will miss out on the 10x optical zoom reach of the S22 Ultra, which is awesome to have. But in bright sunlight, what about the 10x digital zoom on the S22 Plus? Well, to be honest, I wasn't expecting this, but it's really good. Take a look at that. It looks very close, right? Here is another example. Here is the main sensor shot, and then here is the 3x. Both look pretty much identical, and then here's the 10x optical versus the 10x digital zoom. And yes, if you pixel peep, you can see the sharpening and less detail, but for social media, this will definitely do. Here is a more hardcore zoom test across this lake. This is how far I was. Here is the 3x, and then here is the 10x. And I mean, again, that is not bad whatsoever. And then here is the 30x maximum on the S22 Plus. This is where you can see the clear difference. Look at the definition on the flock of birds. This is actually a usable shot, which is crazy. And of course, you get all the way up to 100x here, which isn't really a usable shot, but it's a marvel to have in your pocket anyways, just in case you need it. If you are a macro shot lover, then you will be missing out on the macro mode on the S22 and S22 Plus, because that mode isn't there. I do have to admit, sometimes it's awesome to be able to get this close, but you have to ask yourself if you actually care about this. You could always just use the 3x to get closer if you want, but the minimum focusing distance isn't bad at all on the S22 Plus, and while it still isn't quite the same, you do get that awesome depth of field. Speaking of depth of field or bokeh, I didn't notice much difference at all. And again, I was saying earlier, you may notice a little more detail picked up by the Ultra. But to be honest, most of these shots look almost identical, so you can look at this in two ways. The glass half empty approach, where you expected the Ultra to outshine in every way, so you're thinking the Ultra isn't worth it, so I'm sure that the Ultra is trash for the money comments are being typed right now. Or you can look at this as the glass half full aspect, where Samsung is giving flagship camera performance across the entire range, and if you go for the non-Ultra phones, you're still getting an incredible camera system. I personally look at the Ultra as the most camera you can get if you can afford it. The extra zoom range, the higher resolution stills, the 40 megapixel front facing camera, which can produce some great looking images. So let me know where you stand on this one. This should be very interesting. Daytime video also looks pretty much identical. This is shot in 4K 30 frames per second, and both are full of dynamic range and great colors, so let me know if you can see a difference. They both can shoot in 8K 24 frames per second, and the crazy thing is that the S22 Plus has less of a crop in 8K, which was surprising to me, but also what I noticed the most is the stabilization in 8K. I had stabilization on both of them, and this is handheld video. I confirmed this by trying this again indoors, so I hope that there's a software update to correct this in the future for the Ultra. They both can shoot portrait mode video on the rear and the front facing camera, and I didn't notice much of a difference here. Both look decent. It's great to see this type of consistency between the models. Here's also a walking sample so you can see the stabilization. I do apologize. This is the first video that I took of the day, and the S22 Plus was left on by default at 1080p 30 frames per second. So that's why the video is not as crisp. It's been a long week, guys. I've been doing so many camera comparisons. I definitely need some sleep. Okay, so what about low light? Is there an actual difference here? Well, I'm seeing a definite difference when it comes to the single snapshots without night mode. If you punch in, you can see that there is more noise in the sky on the S22 Plus, so that new binning structure on the Ultra is making a difference when it comes to non-night mode shots. But here is the same image with night mode on, and now things get much closer, and then when you crop in again, that noise is cleaned up very well on the Plus. I might even say it's slightly cleaner in the sky. Here are some more examples. A little bit darker of environment on this one without night mode. Punch in and you can see that it's pretty noisy on the S22 Plus, but results are very consistent, and when you kick in night mode, the noise is reduced well and more details picked up by both of them. So if you're just shooting in night mode most of the time on the S22 and S22 Plus, I think you'll be just fine. The reason why I don't dismiss this is because I appreciate the improvements in single snap, because we always don't have 2 to 3 seconds for night mode to kick in, and that can introduce motion blur. But the great thing, again, like the daytime, is that the images look so close in most instances. There will always be some differences in certain scenarios when it comes to saturation, and sometimes they go back and forth when it comes to images being brighter. I am seeing some better details again being picked up by the Ultra, like the stair shot. If you punch in, you can see that the carpet pattern is so much more detailed on the Ultra, but again, if you aren't pixel peeping, you probably wouldn't even notice this. And again, I appreciate this consistency between the models. For the most part, this non-night mode shot looks almost identical, and even with night mode on, they are both too saturated, but at least they look pretty much the same. The 108 megapixel mode on the Ultra now has night mode, and when you can get it to trigger, it looks great. Here it is punched in next to the 50 megapixel mode. In the detail, you can definitely see the difference. I actually got it to kick in here, and you can see the difference it makes on the brick on the ground. And then when you punch in, everything just looks a little sharper, but there's also less noise. So I'm excited to see Samsung move this forward, but I would also love to see a high resolution night mode come to the S22 and S22 Plus, because it's not available at this time. The zoom range on night mode is something that you also have to consider, but this is confusing because the main shot looks almost the same. You go into 3x night mode, and this looks similar, but if anything, the Ultra looks a little cleaner here. And granted, the S22 Plus did expose for a longer period of time on the digital zoom, but man, that looks much better on noise reduction. I could just keep going on and on, but I think that we can all agree that these images are just too close to really nitpick apart. You aren't really missing any major features between the two. Both have night portrait mode, which looks really good, and yes, you can get portrait night mode on the 3x camera as well, but I had more success with the S22 Plus triggering it because you can't toggle it on manually, so this is night mode portrait versus regular. But regardless, I think when it comes to photography at night, I think the results are going to be very similar. So I think you aren't missing out much if you decide to get the S22 or S22 Plus if you aren't cropping in heavy to see the differences. Where you will see a difference is nighttime video. In moderate low light like this outdoor area at a hotel, you have enough lighting to produce nice looking video on both of them. Where I did see the difference is when I switch lenses. Here is the ultra wide, and if you look at the palm tree here, you can see that the ultra is a little sharper. So if you take a lot of ultra wide video, then this is something to consider. But I think most people will take video at night with the main sensor anyway, so this might not be a big deal. But where the difference is huge is on the 3x video. I was surprised to see this much of a difference. Look at how soft the S22 Plus is here. So if you like to zoom in on your video at night, then the Ultra is definitely the way to go. Here is another test, but in a much darker area. You can see, unfortunately, both of them are pretty noisy, so while video has been improved this year, some further tuning is welcome on noise reduction. When switching to the 3x, there is the S22 Ultra being sharper again, but you can see that the video is allowing more noise to keep the video sharper, where the S22 Plus has more aggressive noise reduction, but it's much softer, so pick your poison. Here is a walking sample in 4K 30 frames per second, and this is handheld video, so let me know which one that you think has better stabilization. If you're watching on a larger display in 4K or maybe on a TV, I'm leaning towards the S22 Plus on this one. It's slightly better at minimizing the bumps in the walk and the video, and in this scenario it's slightly brighter, so again the differences aren't massive. So with this information, you're going to have to make a tough decision. So let's keep it real. What do you think? Did the S22 Plus do better than you thought? And to be honest, it did way better than I thought it would. I think if you favor the S22 and S22 Plus because of its flat display and you just flat out like the design better, then I think you're safe to go with it without getting FOMO that you didn't get the Ultra. Of course, the S Pen is a different topic and the Ultra has a bigger battery, but we're just talking camera here. Yes, there are some video differences at night like you saw, and you will get the absolute best camera experience with more features on the Ultra with some better detail. But if what you saw gives you confidence, which it should, then I think you're safe to buy the S22 Plus, which I think is the sweet spot this year. On the flip side, the S22 Ultra is the best that Samsung offers right now, and it's an absolute beast. So if you buy one, I don't think that you'll be disappointed at all. Again, I wouldn't blame you if you thought some of the S22 Plus's photos look better. So thank you for watching. Make sure that you watch all of the S22 content that I put out so far. There's a lot to enjoy, including many more camera comparisons. Thank you for watching. Subscribe for a lot more coming up in the future, and I will see you in the next one.